Holy slow. Hey, and welcome back to another week at Beyond the Trailer Park. You may have noticed I didn't play my intro. That's because Google Hangouts suck. And it's not communicating with my mixer, and I can't play anything. So, oh well. And if you're listening to this on Spreaker later, I'll probably edit this out because you won't even know because I'll edit it back in. So, yay, podcasting. Anyway, Tracy and Morgan are off tonight, but joining me as usual from the wilds of Pennsylvania. Good evening, Beth. And she's not there.
I'm here, though. You've got me.
Yay! And from somewhere in the United States, I welcome our guest this evening, Natalie Newell. Good evening, Natalie.
Hi, and I'm in Maryland, the wild,
Maryland,
right outside of Washington, D.C.
Right out of, yes, I have a friend in Maryland, and we always say he lives near the bag of gas. So,
yeah, that's where I am. So, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, I hope you're not sort of tainted by the orange mist. You know,
I try to stay away. I try to pretend sometimes that it doesn't exist. You're safe up in Canada, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Away from this dumpster fire, Trumpster fire, just awful things that exist here.
We have Trudeau. Mm.
We're a downgrade from that. Just anything is.
We were just talking about that last night, how it used to be because our previous prime minister was an evangelical Christian who completely screwed over science in Canada. And so we had 12 years of that. And so it's like, now we've got the good guy and you guys have got the asshole.
We've got the asshole. And we went from 8 years of Obama to this guy who, I mean, he is awful. Then he's got Vice President Mike Pence, who
he's worse.
Yeah. I mean, the things he did in Indiana, I mean, pretty much, if you go to Indiana, just surrender your uterus to Mike Pence because he does not care about women and their bodies. So there's that.
I have a female friend who lives in Indiana. She's not a very happy lady.
Yeah. My co-host of my podcast, Science Enthusiast, Dan, he lives in Indiana. So he lives in Mike Pence land. But now we have Mike Pence closer to me at spreading
and not just Mike Pence, but Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, who are just as wonderful.
It's really a clusterfuck, and they are a just terrible band of just douche canoes in there. It just is, it's dire straits, but
I'm sorry.
Hopefully, I don't know.
Well, maybe they'll all get nuked in the grand jury. We can only hope, right?
Oh, goodness, it's like, and then it's like somebody needs to come in and pick up all the pieces and make it better and make this country, I guess, learn to think a little bit better again and not make these mistakes of good. Having people. I mean, that'd be good.
I just posted, I was over at my mother-in-law's last night, who's a very religious lady. I don't hide being an atheist, but it just doesn't register in her brain that someone in her family is not a Christian, and we just don't push the issue.
Yeah.
But, somehow Trump came up and she called him an asshole. And that's the first time I'd ever heard her swear in the 7 years I've been with my husband. I'm like, whoa, it's bad when church lady mother-in-law calls him an asshole.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's not well liked by so many different people at this point. So it unites people, I guess.
I guess.
In a way, the dislike for him.
She is a German immigrant, Polish German, post World War II, when anybody who was ethnic German was persecuted after the war. And so she him and his anti-immigrant stuff really kind of hit home, and it really made her angry because she knows what it's like to escape. Like her mother pulled her and 3 little girls, you know, across out of East Germany right after the war, and, you know, having to hide and get on trains in the middle of the night and all that stuff. So yeah, she got mad. But anyway, Beth's having some problems there, but she'll get back as soon as she can. But so science is your thing. And so first of all, I always like to get a little bit of background on guests. So were you religious? And if so, what flavor?
So I was raised Catholic.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've told this story recently, I guess, kind of how I went from Catholic, sort of Catholic, to, you know, just atheist. But my family is Italian American, so I feel like the Catholicism was sort of more part of the culture than, like, we didn't pray at home, but we went to church,
right?
And it felt always just more like that kind of thing that you do. I went to Catholic school from kindergarten all the way through high school, actually, but more because the public schools in the town I grew up were not that great, and so Catholic school was kind of
that here too, actually.
Yeah. So it was, you know, go to the religious school because it was the, you know, not too expensive alternative. So I went through all of the different sacraments of Catholicism, like my first communion, you know, when you think back, it's like you're dressed almost like a little bride in a veil and the white dress.
Creepy shit.
And you're going creepy. And you go and you eat Jesus. Like, it's really weird when you think about it. so it's not okay.
I've always, because of the transubstantiation thing, I've always wanted, if I ever, you know, had to go to some Catholic service and people are going, I'm a bitch, I'd go up and pretend I'm worthy of communion. I'd be like, so Father, what part of Jesus are we getting this week? Is it tongues or is it lips and assholes?
Nope, and all you're getting is a stale cracker.
Yeah. Go ahead. I want to come back to the crackers later, but go ahead.
So I went through, I did all of the things, the, you know, confession, because, you know, when you're 7, you have a lot of sins that you need to go tell.
You're terrible. You know,
I still remember, like, going, and you'd have to think, okay, what am I going to tell him? Like, I was mean to my sister, I didn't clean my room. What does God want to hear from me? But
fed broccoli to the dog, you know.
So I did all those things up until in high school. I got confirmation, which I think that's when the Holy Spirit comes into you.
I did that right? Too. Yeah.
Okay, so the Holy Spirit is, I guess, still in me, maybe. But then what's funny is kind of after confirmation, because that was the last of the sacraments. Then it just stopped going to church.
Yep.
It was just it was a thing that kind of happened without much talk or thinking about it. I got my confirmation, stopped going to church. My sister is 2 years younger than me. She got her confirmation, stopped going to church. And I mean, and then I guess at that point, we didn't really go anymore. A few years after that, maybe Christmas Eve kind of thing, you know, tradition.
Yeah.
But
midnight mass.
Yeah. But then there was a point where my family collectively was like, well, we would rather sit home and drink wine and start eating dinner sooner than go to church. So that's
priorities.
So priorities, that's what happened. And at this point, my parents don't go to church. I think my dad would probably say he's an atheist. I don't know that my mom would say she's an atheist. But I do not believe that she believes in God. And
maybe she's kind of on the deist, agnostic,
you know, that
sort of. Yeah.
But, you know, obviously they know that I'm an atheist. They know I do all this stuff where I put myself out there as an atheist. My sister is, you know, not as outspoken about it, but there's just no religion. And it's kind of fortunate where it was never an awkward thing with the family.
That's good. That's
so
really
it just kind of all fell away, but I really think that a lot of it was more based in tradition than belief.
And my mother dragged us to Sunday school all the time and went to church when we were little.
Mhm.
And now she doesn't go at all. And I think now we grew up in a denomination you wouldn't probably have heard of. It's called the United Church of Canada. And it's like super liberal.
Yeah.
But I think she was raised to believe that a good parent teaches, the only way to teach your kid morality is to make them go to church.
Mm-hmm.
And so in her mind, that's what a good parent does, is you drag your kids to Sunday school, whether they like it or not. Yeah. And once we got older, that effort kind of, I mean, when she married my stepdad, they were going to church a little bit. But he had a daughter that was younger than me and stuff, and I think that sort of carried on. But yeah, they don't go to church at all anymore. But so that's good though. That's good.
Yeah, so it all just kind of worked out nicely.
So what made you go from I'm an atheist to I'm an activist?
So I guess it was when I came into like the starting to do my Science Moms project. That kind of opened me up to like the world of the internet and trying to spread good ideas and critical thinking, because I kind of found my atheism sort of gradually over time and really started owning that as part of who I was, kind of the atheist humanist part, but also the skeptic critical thinker part. And then just figured once I started having this platform where with the science stuff, I do this other page called Skeptical Parenting, where it's kind of science with the atheism, so I can inject a little bit more of me into it. And then when Dan and I started doing our podcast, we thought, okay, we're, it's kind of science and skepticism, but atheism and secularism is a big part of who we are. And so we have all of these things are connected because they're all based in reason and critical thinking. And we just found these discussions we're having, it's all the topics coming together. And we have this audience that is listening, and we might as well, give a voice for this stuff. And like I love doing the science part, but I think I love even more sometimes just getting to tell stories of people who have left religion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think a lot of different people appreciate hearing those, which is why I usually like to talk about that with new guests, is because everybody's story is different. Mm-hmm. And every time you get a different story, there's somebody out there that can go, wow, that's kind of like how it happened for me. Mm-hmm. And I know, and poor Beth, she's kind of struggling to get in here, but we have this sort of friendly rivalry where she came from a very, very like theologian parents background, and it took her a long, drawn out trying different sects and trying different types of things and going through the woo phase and the spiritual phase, and it took her like 10 years, whereas I kind of reasoned it out one day and went, shit, there's no God. Damn. Yeah. Well, then I don't have to tell people they're going to hell no more. Awesome. And like 2 weeks later, I went from, you better repent, you're going to hell, to I know there's no God. Like none of this agnostic stuff. I'm like, no God. So she's always like, bitch.
Like, because you just went there. You didn't need those sort of intermediate steps to kind of figure out. Yeah.
And I know I'm totally an anomaly. Like far more people take their time and they try the different, maybe this isn't the right religion, I'll try this one, or maybe it's not. I get a lot of people, theists, that say, well, religion is corrupt, I just follow Jesus, and not, and all of those stages in between. So Beth, can we hear you now?
I think the internet's pretty bad there.
It is probably.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I heard something.
I heard something.
Heard something.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Try it. Maybe try it without the video.
Yes.
Because
Yeah, so that might.
I'm only hearing like every other syllable.
That's an idea.
Yeah, try it without the video.
Yeah, because sometimes the video takes a lot.
Yeah, my ISP has connectivity.
Yeah, I'm only getting like every other word, but maybe go out and come back with no video and see if that helps. Oh dear, technology's great when it works.
It is great when it works, and when it doesn't, it's the worst thing ever.
I've had today is pretty bad because my equipment's fucked up and won't do what it's supposed to do, and Beth's having trouble too. So you got into doing
Can you hear me now?
Sort of
Yes.
sciencey activism and all that stuff. So I imagine that you have a probable field day with all the woo shit that's out there right now.
Oh, there's so much woo shit. Like it's unbelievable that it feels like every week there's a new article that needs to be put out that's pretty much based on don't shove this weird thing in your vagina. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy. The fact that Gwyneth Paltrow is a health expert.
I was hoping we could talk about her.
Let's talk about her, because she, like, if I was a superhero, she can be my arch nemesis, because she is just such a purveyor of bullshit that pisses me off so much.
That's insane.
So she's one of the people. I guess the film that I'm making, it's in response to a lot of the bullshit that people like Gwyneth Paltrow were putting out there. My inspiration for making a movie about like evidence-based parenting came because I stumbled upon this open letter written by a group of scientists and science communicator moms, pretty much saying to people like Gwyneth Paltrow, stop telling people that, GMOs are dangerous and all this bullshitty stuff. Stop, because you don't have evidence. Talk to a scientist, get the information.
Exactly.
Gwyneth Paltrow was able to somehow go speak in front of people in Washington, D.C. saying,
yes,
yeah, like, I'm here as a mom, you should label the food.
Because
Bullshit.
she's
Bullshit.
famous. Because she's famous. And I gotta think that, her looks have something to do with it, I would imagine.
Oh, all of it. It's the fame, and it's that we are, unfortunately, a culture that seems to like worship these celebrities, even though they have no credentials, and they're talking about stuff. Jenny McCarthy should not have ever been trusted about vaccines. All of these ladies are awful.
And people still listen to the shit. Like, okay, I'm sorry, but the minute somebody came along and said, hey, you should be sticking this rock up your vagina,
Shouldn't we have all stopped?
Yeah, and got, whoa.
Yeah. Like, it's 2017. I feel like we as a society should not have to be told not to shove a jade egg in our vagina and keep it there. It's crazy.
My first thought is, how do you keep it in there?
This is not something. No, this is not something I ever want to even have to think about. But people buy this stuff.
Have you seen? It was a couple of months ago. There was some guy who was coming up with this glue.
Labia lipstick
to glue your labia closed when you have your period. Like, that's gonna be healthy.
No, I don't want to like crazy glue myself shut. That nothing about that sounds good.
No.
Yet that's a conversation that entered
someone's head,
and this person thought this is a good idea. So No.
Even worse, I saw one just the other day, and it was another idiot along the lines of the labia lipstick guy who came up with the idea of just putting like a little Band-Aid style sticker over the end of your penis, and that was going to be birth control.
Dick tape. That
Dick tape.
just
Yes.
like that's pretty much what it is, and that again is so wrong. It's so wrong. Yet these are the things people are coming up with. So the woo is everywhere. The woo is very real in the world, and so that's the thing. It ranges, things that you think, oh, like, this is just ridiculous and kind of funny. But can you imagine if somebody really thought taping the end of their penis is going to prevent, STDs, pregnancy?
Yes.
Like, that's the thing, is that the woo, it's funny when you think about it at first, right? But then it's so fucking dangerous, some of it.
Absolutely.
And that's where it's a problem when you get into things that's targeted like to parents who are then making decisions for their children based on bullshit.
Well, and the thing is, like, we had bullshit growing up, and like, I remember the one that made the rounds in high school, and I'm a little bit older than you, but well, if you douche with Coke after you have sex, you can't get pregnant. Like, stupid shit like that. And it was kind of whispered and behind locker rooms and whatnot. But now we have the internet.
Yeah.
We didn't have the internet back then. So, only a few people were duped into believing these stupid old, we called them wives' tales at then. But now we've got the internet, where if you get a bunch of gullible people, or someone who just, worships somebody like Gwyneth Paltrow and thinks that, everything that comes out of her mouth is, a golden voice of perfection, and it gets disseminated as if it's some kind of an authority. And that's some scary shit.
Well, yeah, the bad ideas spread so easily. And and I think the ideas that are rooted in fear just seem to grow legs and just spread so easily, because everybody, I think, when I think of parents and why, I do a lot of what I do, is that parents will buy into the fear culture really easily, because at the end of the day, it's like, you have these little people that you need to keep alive, and you don't want to do anything wrong. But at the same time, it's like, we all kind of just need to accept on some level. We just need to be okay. We're not going to be, we don't have to be super mom. We don't have to be like the best dad on the planet. We don't have to be perfect. We need to, keep them healthy and happy and, growing into the best possible people they can. But then when you get, when people get taken by the fear, that's when irrational behavior happens. And the scare about, vaccines and autism and those kind of issues, like things like that happen. And it's just so dangerous.
Well, and coupled with the fear is the second idea that, oh, I'm smarter than the average person because I see the conspiracy here. And like, every time I see a book on, things doctors don't want you to know, and I'm like, why would they not want you to know something that that's Hippocratic oath, people? And honestly, my stepfather got really bad. He's 73 now, and it drive my mother nuts, because every book that would come out that said, oh, here are the secrets that the establishment don't want you to know, and he would just soak it all in. And then, like, the worst one, my uncle has Parkinson's, and my stepfather had read something about aspartame causing that sort of neurological disorder, and my uncle had worked for Coca-Cola like his entire working life, And my stepfather was going to go tell my uncle with Parkinson's that, oh, well, if you just stop drinking, you know, aspartame and Coke, it'll go away. And my mom like put her foot down. I was like, don't you dare go and tell him that shit. Like,
No.
you just don't do that.
And it gives false hope. It makes people, you know, stop doing things that could actually be effective and work. And because, I mean, everybody wants that sort of silver bullet, like easy solution to things.
Yeah.
Where sometimes the reality is like there isn't one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the tricky thing too.
Well, case in point, and I'm sure Beth would bring this up if she could get in here. She's still trying. She keeps saying that she gets in and can't hear us. So, but she's working on it. But a friend of the show, and I don't know if you'd ever heard of her, but was a mythicist writer, went by Acharya S. or sometimes DM Murdoch. And unfortunately, she passed away of breast cancer just this past Christmas. And she didn't even last a year. And she unfortunately jumped on the bandwagon of chemo kills people and alkaline water is a cure for cancer and that kind of stuff. And, you know, Beth was pretty good friends with her. And, you know, Beth figures that she died a lot quicker. Now, she did have an aggressive form of the cancer, but, you know, she may well have diminished the time that she had left because she bought into this, you know, well, there's all this natural things that will cure cancer and chemo's poison and they just want to make you sicker to make more money and all of that. And she's dead.
And it's unfortunate too that it's like it turns into big pharma conspiracy or that, you know, the idea, like you said, that natural is better. I mean, that comes up, the idea of just natural in general, whether it's medicine or food. It's amazing what a marketing tool that's become to go to the grocery store and things will say, you know, like marketed as natural. I mean, if you have potato chips that are marketed as natural, I mean, they're still potato chips. They're not instantly this health food at this point. If the cookie is labeled as natural, it's still a fucking cookie. Like it's not
organic. Organic is my other big one.
Yep. Natural and organic. And
I'm a farm girl. A farm girl. I grew up on a dairy farm. And, you know, we harvested crops and, you know, we grew corn and all that stuff. And, you know, there's a lot of natural stuff out there that you don't want to mess with.
Right. I mean, well, yeah, like I think it's right at the beginning of my movie. Actually, one of the women says, you know, nature can kill you. Nature will kill you. That's so natural in and of itself does not mean better. And like you said too, organic doesn't make it healthier. And that's another marketing tool that, especially when I think of, you know, parents who have to buy food for an entire family, you can either spend a fuck ton more and buy organic that's not going to give you any health benefits, or you buy conventional produce, and it's fresh fruits and vegetables.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but organic in its proper usage basically just means like a biological something, right?
Yeah. And
so when they say, oh, it's, you know, organic vegetables, I'm like, what? As opposed to the shit made out of plastic? Like,
and then there's organic farming, which there's this myth that has existed where people seem to think that organic farming doesn't use pesticides. They just use organic pesticides rather than synthetic pesticides. So organic doesn't mean pesticide free.
Exactly.
But people seem to think that they're having I don't know, it's sanctimony that goes along with the food, which is unfortunate.
Well, and I think back to, like, you know, when my family was still farming was back in the 70s, and they were using things like was it DEET or no, what was it? That stuff that was supposed to kill insects, and they found out later it was possibly harmful. But, you know, organic pesticides basically mean stuff we used to use before we knew how to synthesize things. And so they were using dangerous shit back then too. I mean, people thought asbestos was all the rage back then, and you know, look what happened. And isn't asbestos, you dig it out of the ground, it's like naturally occurring?
Is it?
I think so.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think we have asbestos mines in Canada because we've caught grief about it before. I have to look that up. But yeah, that whole idea that natural is so better and organic is better and just
but people really buy into it, and it just, I don't know. And I think the issue too is that people, you know, when they're worried about making decisions for their own health, their kids' health, whatever, they're making the decisions not necessarily based on fact, but on this fear that they're doing something wrong, that it's wrong to not just go to Whole Foods and buy a fully organic, you know, diet for yourself and your kids. And I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I do all my like projects, you know, my movie and podcast now. But before that, I worked in education, and I was a school principal for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And some of the questions and concerns that I would have to answer were so first world in nature.
Yeah.
Where like, because it was mostly preschool age children. And I would have parents say, you know, maybe you should make sure that only organic food is served at the school. And I would try not to laugh at them because fuck no. But that was my internal response is like, where are you coming from with that?
Yeah.
We're serving your children fruit and vegetables and this like well-balanced little snacks, and you want us to spend more money on that?
Yeah.
On more, you know, and it's
crazy.
It's because people don't have information though.
And I just looked it up. Asbestos minerals comes from metamorphic rocks.
Oh,
so it's mined. So
yeah.
Asbestos is natural.
It's natural. But because, you know, everything that's natural is safe, and we should just be around it all the time. So but natural has just been corrupted.
Volcanoes are natural.
What's that, Beth? Please say something.
I said volcanoes are natural.
Yes.
Go swim in them.
Yeah.
Go swim in a lava pool, please. Or
damn it, we were so close.
We were so close. She said, but volcanoes are natural. So yes.
Yep. Go.
Geyser.
Hot geysers. Yep, those are natural.
All those like scary spiders in Australia and all kinds of.
Yep. The ones that are like 3 feet fucking tall. Those are natural.
They're natural. They're all natural, and you want to hang out with those and just, you know. Also, I mean, the sun is natural.
Yes, gives you cancer.
It's so there we go. But do you know there are even people who don't believe in sunscreen, who will not use sunscreen because sunscreen is toxic. I swear, it's crazy.
Go on, Beth.
There's people that actually believe that staring at the sun is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the amount of woo and is crazy.
Oh, did you guys see there was an article recently about people who called themselves, I think it was Breatharians.
Breatharians. Yes.
So where they're just like, we don't eat food. We just breathe air.
Well, it was really bizarre.
Yeah.
What's really bizarre about the Breatharians, I was on another show, and I was a call-in, but I kind of guested, sort of. And we actually interviewed a lady who considered herself Breatharian, and basically all she was doing was killing herself. It was just a form of suicide.
Yeah.
I mean, and we spent about an hour after the show ended, and it was a 2-hour show.
Mm-hmm.
This woman, she was in her 60s, to stop doing what she was doing. She finally did, but most of your Breatharians that we know of publicly through the media have actually been caught eating food.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yes,
I mean there's They're full of shit.
I saw a video, it was just like a week or so ago, I came across this shit on YouTube. So I'm like, oh, Google me some breatharians. What's that? And I saw this video. There was a famous one out of Australia, and she like writes books and gets on TV all the time over there. And we're trying to do a controlled experiment with her, and she agreed to all of this. But they were monitoring her, like she wasn't allowed to be.
She's actually the starter of the whole movement.
Okay, good to know. And after, I think like on the third day, like she was obviously quite ill because she wasn't taking, and they were like, you need to go to a hospital and like, eat something and get hydrated. And she's like, oh no, I'm fine. And I forget how it ended up, but it was basically like, yeah, you're full of shit because you're obviously practically killing yourself right now. Like, go get some medical attention, you crazy lady.
Imagine like believing that though, like that, or on some level that this is how you are going to live your life. I just can't even imagine that sort of just irrational thought that it is leading you to, I mean, you're actively killing yourself if you are just like, I'm not going to eat food.
Well, there's a comment. Sorry, there's a comment in the chat from Booleanator. Hi there. I guess Thunderfoot debunked the breatharians. And he said, and I remember this actually because that was another video I came across. It was quite simple. We inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide, and that is carbon. So you're exhaling the carbon, and if you don't intake more of it, you will eventually die.
God.
Sorry, Beth, I cut you off there. What were you going to say?
I don't remember.
I'm sorry.
But you covered it. That's okay. I'm so frustrated that my better.
Well, it's kind of better.
That's because the library closed. I have a few.
Okay, we're still getting like.
So what did I miss?
Well, we're only getting every third word yet, so. We'll get half a sentence. You'll freeze up for a second, and then you go like super fast motion. And, yeah,
it's all catching up, and
yeah, it's kind of fun though. So another major goofball or whatever is this David Avocado. Well,
David, I know who
does that.
Who makes that decision where like, I have a name, it's David Wolf or whatever, but I want to throw an avocado in there because that makes me like holistic and natural. And he's out of his mind.
Yes,
but he's a bullshit artist though, isn't he? Because he's doing things to. I mean, he's selling things.
And we were talking before the show, and I said, well, he's basically the Deepak Chopra of science and nutrition, the word salad guru.
He is. He is.
Okay, the one that really blew my mind was gravity is a toxin, but if you flip it upside down, it becomes medicine. How the fuck do you even process that?
How do you even? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. No. And I think chocolate is an octave of the sun. He also said.
Sun, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what annoys me with Wolf specifically, and the Food Babe falls into this, is they have absolutely education area, and I'm
no education. She was saying, they have no education, just like our friend Gwyneth.
Yeah, and not even precursory, like from a layman's point of view.
Yeah,
it's all just it's whatever they can make a buck off of.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I mean, Food Babe. It's all affiliate links and buy her products and boycott these like restaurants and companies that she would never eat at or shop from anyways.
Anyway.
But she goes on these weird crusades because she has no understanding of science. She has no understanding that, you know, everything's a chemical. So she picks out these things that she says, well, if it's not in your food or if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. Well, no, I mean, that's not how it works. Everything is made up of chemicals that have lots of long names.
There's a lot of stuff that is in your body that I'm pretty sure I can't pronounce.
Yeah. But they put out these ideas that somebody hears it and they're like, oh yeah, you shouldn't. If you can't pronounce it, you shouldn't eat it because that somehow makes sense to me because natural. And, you know, we want to believe these things, that we don't want to think, oh, we're eating dangerous chemicals and whatever else they're telling you.
Yeah.
There was a meme that I just posted yesterday. In fact, I think it was from The Incredible Hulk, or at least that's where I stole it from. And I kind of bitch off and on about this whole clean eating, organic, all that type of... And basically it was a meme highlighting very well what a marketing scam this shit is. Non-GMO sugar.
Oh yeah, I saw that on Incredible Hulk. Yeah, he definitely shared that. Yes.
And the comment he put to it, and it's a comment I've made before, have genes to modify.
Mm-hmm.
Sugar is sugar, no matter what fucking form it takes. Whether it, you know,
Glucose,
the different types,
fructose.
and fructose, they all honey. I love people that say, well, I'm going to substitute honey for sugar. Honey, child, if I did that, my blood sugars would be back up in the 600s.
Well, but that's dangerous for people who really do need to worry about how much sugar they're eating in whatever form. And so somebody sees one of these recipes, and I forgot, you know when Starbucks had those unicorn frappuccinos, right? Those things. And so Food Babe and people on that side of things were criticizing how much sugar, whatever. I saw a recipe on one of the, you know, wooey pages for, you know, make your own unicorn frappuccino.
It was Food Babe.
And looking at the things that's in it, there was so much sugar in it. It wasn't white cane sugar or sugar from GMO sugar beets or something, but it was sugar. There was honey, there was maple syrup, there was tons of fruit. But somebody sees that and thinks, oh, there's no sugar in it. That's a problem.
Yeah. It's a big problem. Well, absolutely.
For Deb and I, we're both diabetic. And I've actually had diabetic ketoacidosis and what they also call hypersomnolarity disorder, where my sugar just all of a sudden shot. It went up to 968. Yes, I was in the hospital. I mean, and basically what it was, not even thinking, it wasn't because I was on some kick or something. I was drinking, you know, supposedly natural, no sugar added, but not realizing, because I wasn't thinking, I was pounding down probably enough sugar to kill a freaking elephant.
Yeah.
Well, and I landed in the hospital this January with ketoacidosis. You know what got me? I had a lung infection, and I took NyQuil. Who knew? Next thing I know, I'm in the fucking hospital.
I mean, that's the thing. You have somebody, you know, that's diabetic and says, "Oh, I can eat honey instead of sugar." No, you can't.
No.
Right.
And then they bitch and moan about things like aspartame, and I don't know what the other one is, stevia or something. And, you know, oh, it's going to give you cancer and blah, 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 blah. Oh, well, you know, we don't know that for sure, first of all. Second of all, if I get cancer in 30 years, that's a lot better than dropping dead next week from, you know, eating natural sugar.
But it's that fear of it's like chemophobia is just rampant with these people.
Yeah.
And so that's where the aspartame stuff comes in. I'm like, well, I mean, I like Diet Coke, sorry, but you know, and so then they try to sell their own ideas, their own products. And you're right, Food Babe and David Wolf are just in that category of just wanting to make a buck off of people's fears. And so they sell their bullshit. And regarding David Wolf, for anybody who's like watching or listening and hasn't read SciBabe Yvette's article about David Wolf on the outline, read it. It's amazing. It's pretty much like what I think is, you know, because everybody has those family members who share the David Wolf memes on Facebook, probably, you know, because they're those nice pictures of, you know, a mountain and a motivational quote.
Or cute kittens and stuff. And I'm a sucker for kittens.
See, and he knows it. He knows how to get to people because he gets the followers with those memes. And then he puts out his dangerous stuff like take a hike instead of your antidepressants. Like he spreads really dangerous messages. Yeah. But he suckers people in with those cute kitten memes and the motivational stuff. But I think anytime people share, you know, those David Wolf memes, share Yvette's article in the comments. Like, hey, here's this guy. Don't follow him anymore.
I've seen other people, like on Facebook posts and in other articles say that too. Like, do not share any of his stuff. Like, I don't care if it's the cutest kitten you've ever seen in your life. Don't share that shit. Because like you said, he uses that as a hook. And there's enough people that love little kittens that also think that, you know, big pharma's out to kill them, that he's going to rake those people in. And next thing you know, they're deciding that, you know, oh, I don't need blood pressure medication. I'm just going to go for a walk in the forest and that'll help.
I remember there was one that he posted, I think it was a year or so ago, that said something about a handful of cashews is just as good as an antidepressant.
What?
Oh, not even kidding. So eat cashews.
Jesus.
These are things that, I mean, you hope on some level that people don't believe that stuff because it just seems so out there to somebody who is looking at it in that lens. But people believe this stuff. And that's the problem. I mean, people, whether it's that kind of thing or the other day I watched a new documentary that's available on Netflix, What the Health.
Oh, have you check that out?
Oh, yeah.
Or no.
I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily say, oh yeah, sit down and it'll be enjoyable, because it's not. It's because thinking about sort of that, like the mental health type of stuff, it essentially at one point said, you know, a vegan diet will make you not have to take antidepressants anymore.
And
so
you know,
stuff like that is out there.
And you know what boggles my mind is, because that's very similar to the kind of shit that Scientology does. And yet some of the people that will buy into Paltrow and Wolf and that, and they'll look at Scientology saying, oh, well, you don't need antidepressants, just get more auditing. And like, oh, look at those lunatics over there. Like, no, it's the same fucking shit, because they don't just say, go get more auditing. They also say, take all these 5 million types of vitamins and go do the purification rundown again and things like that. Yeah. And it's the same shit in a different package. One is just a bit wooier than the other one.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's something I feel like I've realized and learned a little bit more recently is that I guess I always kind of assumed that there was a lot of overlap between atheists and skeptics.
No.
And I learned we went to, when Dan and I had the chance to do a really fun live recording of our podcast, A Gateway to Reason, in St. Louis.
Nice.
I guess it was like a week or so ago, which was awesome. And it's always so fun to just be among, you know, like-minded people and just have a good time. But we did notice the skepticism doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with the atheism.
Well, I've just recently had people on my Facebook page, you know, I'm everything on my page is public.
Mhm.
And I posted something about what was it? Something to do with Islam. And this guy who he was a little he'd been on my friends list. Like I kind of try and vet people, but
Mhm.
a lot of people don't display their views on things like that, and it's kind of hard to, so I kind of take my best guess, and I had accepted this guy I don't know how many months ago. And he came on, and it was something critical of Islam.
Mhm.
And he came on and started posting stuff about, well, here's this verse from the Bible where Jesus is being all violent, and here's this verse from the Bible where, you know, somebody else was being all violent, and you know, and we're like, okay, yeah, I get that. Nobody that I know of here thinks that Christianity is any better, but this thread is about Islam.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's a tactic that some people will use to try and deflect criticism of Islam, and I don't stand for that.
Mhm.
You know, criticism is valid, it's valid. So I'm like, yeah, that's great, but not on this thread. And he kept doing it. And then he started in, well, Christians and Jews have killed way more Muslims because, and then he started in with, well, because you can't count 9/11 because that was an inside job, and all
Oh my
that.
goodness.
Like, oh, here we go.
Well, I will tell you that one of the other speakers at the conference was our friend David McAfee, who runs a fantastic science
I follow.
He's amazing. But he said after his talk, some 9/11 truthers came up to him.
We had that at I don't know if you're familiar with Ali Rizvi. He's an ex-Muslim.
Yes.
He's a friend of mine, and when his book came out last year, I went to he did a book launch at the local CFI, and I was excited to go hear from, because the book had just come out and he was going to do a reading and whatever. It was a really lovely event, and there was a 9/11 truther there, and he got up, like, because Ali did a Q&A, and this guy got up and was like, well, you know, going on about how he's an engineer and how he knew that they couldn't follow. And we were like, okay, get to the question, you know, kind of thing. And he's like, well, do you talk about, you know, how 9/11 was an inside job or whatever in your book? And he's like, well, I mentioned 9/11, but no. And this guy wouldn't shut up. And finally, another friend of mine who's a little more it was Greg Beth. He stood up and was like, okay, you know what? This isn't the time and the place for this. So, you know, do you mind? Other people have questions, and kind of like, shut the fuck up, buddy. But, and we realized later he even had like a truther t-shirt on and everything. And we were just like, oh. And Ali, like, he tried to sort of answer as much as he could without being a dick to the guy, right? Because, you know,
you try, right? You try. But yeah, I guess I've realized that the atheist community, I think, could benefit from a little bit of the scientific skepticism. And I'm glad that we were there to, you know, give our little bit, and that David McAfee exists in that world to write his books and, you know, debunk bullshit. But yeah, I've realized that just because you don't believe in a deity, it doesn't mean that you're critically thinking about all these other things at the same time.
And I still get people that I have a reasonably large friends list, in quotes, on Facebook, and I get, you know, I know Facebook doesn't show you everything, and they have their stupid algorithms and whatnot, but every once in a while there'll be somebody, you know, I've read their posts here and there, and all of a sudden they're sharing from March Against Monsanto, and I'm like, you know, and I'm like, I have to go back and look at, okay, how well do I know them? Should I just unfriend them now? And
well, yeah, and like, so March Against Monsanto, that page, I mean, they've gone full like chemtrailer, anti-vaxx, crazy. And so they're even at this point kind of fringe in their own right, because they just put all of those crazy beliefs out there. But yeah, that's the other thing too, is people have just kind of decided to demonize this whole idea of this one particular company, and that means biotechnology is terrible and GMOs are, killing us all. And like, again, the fear is there, but it's not founded in reality.
Exactly. And I mean, I've heard this whole, well, GMOs cause cancer. Well, number one, we don't know that. Yeah. That they're in correlation is not a cause, people. And then I come at, well, okay, the most impact that GMOs have right now is in the third world, where people are starving because the food isn't distributed properly and they can't grow properly where they are. So I'm like, okay, you go tell that, starving African child that, well, we're not going to give you GMO because you might get cancer in 30 years, but they're going to die, tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, and right now, when you think about it, if you look, like, the scientific consensus, which is when you take the whole, like, the body of evidence about about any particular subject, but GMOs, consensus says GMOs are safe. So that's what, and that's not, scientists all saying like, oh, I'm going to raise my hand and say they're safe. No, it's what the evidence says. Yet the fear that they're dangerous still exists. And you're absolutely right about the whole, we're fine here. We have the luxury of going to the grocery store and choosing out of
non-GMO, gluten,
all of it,
whatever.
So many options. But there are places, like if you go to parts of Asia where people are suffering from like vitamin A deficiency, and there's golden rice, which genetically modified, crop that can help, with people who are suffering from a really terrible problem. Yet this GMO fear, this biotech fear, is stopping that from happening. So when there's technology that can have a real far-reaching global impact, and this fear culture is stopping it from happening, like, that's just fucked up.
It is. It
really
is. And they don't understand, because, like I said, I'm a farm girl. I have a little tiny bit of knowledge about this. We've been making GMO since the dawn of agriculture, people. Like, do you think that the food that you grow now looks anything like it did even 200 or 300 years ago? It doesn't. If you took if you brought somebody from, the pre-Confederation America and dropped them in a supermarket, they would have no fucking clue what any of that stuff was. Like, even if you just took them into the produce section where everything's there, they'd be like, you show them a like, say, a cabbage, and they would probably be like, that doesn't look like what I eat. What the hell? Yeah. That's not a cabbage.
Because it's all plant breeding and modification over time, and biotechnology and genetic engineering is it's a very precise type of plant breeding. But yeah, that doesn't mean that everything in the grocery store is just how it always has been. No, but
I wonder how many anti-GMO people regularly eat bananas.
Right? And you've seen the pictures of what a banana looks like. I don't know. I don't want to eat that. I can't even imagine putting that anywhere in my children's general direction. They'd be like, Mom, I hate you.
Get on all the damn seeds.
Those huge seeds. So yeah, and those images, though, are so readily available. All of these people in their Google searching, you'd think they'd come across it. But, when you're Googling, you find what you need.
Monsanto puts all those fake pictures up there to trick you into thinking that's,
Some of the anti-GMO pictures are so funny. Because, it's all the tomatoes with the syringes with blue liquid going on.
Yeah.
But my favorite one, I did a talk at a New York City skeptic event. It was in the winter, and I was doing slides for my talk, and I came across the best one ever, which is a tomato that had a little fetus inside it.
Oh, fuck.
A human.
What?
Yeah, like it's all I was just Googling GMO and in Google image search, and yeah, there's a tomato with a, you know, tiny little person, because that's what it is. That's what happens, I guess. Okay. There's babies in your food. But that's somebody's image. They're crazy.
So I know what that was. That was tomatoes grown to use as ketchup at an atheist barbecue. That's what that was.
That's what it is. That's what it is. You solved it. That's what it is.
That's what it is. It's tomatoes for atheist ketchup.
Yes, we are genetically modifying our own baby ketchup. That's there we go. Heard it here. That's what it is. Yeah. So the images are crazy.
Well, and it's
they're sensational.
The anti-vaxxer images I see where they've taken a picture of a crying baby and Photoshop needles sticking all in it. I'm like, really? You think that's nice to look at? Really?
Yeah. My favorite one.
Oh, yes.
Is where I'm actually here. They have a baby and the syringe is bigger than my fucking forearm, filled with fluorescent glow-in-the-dark apple juice.
Yes, apple juice.
Like, the needle is longer than the thickness of the baby's arm. It's like, no, they're usually about this big. They're they're not horse needles.
No, I mean I've recently taken my 4-year-old to get his 4-year-old checkup, and that's not what the needles look like. Has all of these concerned parents who are anti-vax, have they ever been to a doctor and seen what needles look like? Probably not. Like, or they think somehow eventually the pediatrician's going to bring out that big one full of apple juice and put on the child. But
they think, the doctor's going to come in, turn out the lights, and come in with the black light so everything glows all eerily.
We're going to turn your child into an X-Man right now. They're going to be little mutants because of this fluorescent stuff. It's crazy.
Things that anti-vaxxers say is a Facebook group I'm pretty sure you're familiar with. And some of the screenshots that they highlight, it's like ninja turtles, ninja nurses and ninja doctors that they're gonna vaccinate the second they turn their head. It's like, no, it doesn't quite work that way.
No, it doesn't work that way. But I will say, when I was looking for a pediatrician for my kids, when I was first pregnant, the practice I decided on, what got me was because it's this awesome group of all women doctors. And when I went, they were just like, just so you know, we want to vaccinate children. And we know parents, have reservations or whatever, but they were like, if you are looking for a practice that's going to be happy about not vaccinating, that's not us. And they were like, just I like you all so much, and thank you. Because
it's a shame they have to even say that. When I got sick 2 years ago, now my general practitioner, and I had to switch. I spent this long, sorry. But my doctor moved to another practice, which I don't drive, is 35 minutes away. So I had no choice but to go to where I'm going. And she's a DO, which they have comparable to MD training. But
that's a doctor of osteopathy, in case anybody... Yeah.
Yes. They also are trained in chiropractic medicine, which is junk.
Yeah.
At best, no better than some forms of physical therapy. So 3 weeks after, 3 or 4 weeks, might have been a little longer, I still have problems with my neck. Now, at the time, I had not yet had my MRI because I had no insurance at the time, and it took 7 months to get one scheduled. She's like, well, I can fix that. It's really scary when you have to check out your doctor's qualifications to the point of basically having to do a 10-page thesis on whether she's qualified or not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really scary. And then, like, there's a chiropractor that primarily practices in the next town over, and he advertises himself, you know, I can fix you one spine at a time. What he doesn't tell people is, as soon as you walk into his office, he is pure anti-vax.
Yeah.
And I have friends that actually go to him, and I'm like, because they just had little ones. And I'm like, but thankfully they've stuck, you know, they stuck with the vaccinations. But it's just like, it's really sad that as consumers, we have to literally vet our own doctors.
Yeah.
Just because they fall into, I mean, they're what, at least 7,300 studies into specifically vaccines that showing that they are safe. There is zero showing any that vaccinations are unsafe. Now, obviously, if you have an allergy to one of the constituent components of a vaccine, don't fucking get it.
Yeah. Oh. And that's why everybody else needs to get the vaccines, because some people actually can't.
That's right.
So
that's the herd immunity. And that's what pisses me off is when people are like, well, it's my child and it's my choice. No, it's not just your kid.
No.
And every other person that kid comes in contact with. A friend of mine in our local group had a double lung transplant a few years ago, and he's on anti-rejection medication, and he basically will tell you, I have no immune system. And so for somebody like him, if he came in contact with some unvaccinated kid whose parent is an idiot, it could kill him, literally.
Well, right. It's a public health issue. It's not just oh, it's my child. But I mean, the fact that we fairly recently had measles in Minnesota in was it the Somali population there where they were
evangelical Christians.
Well, that, and they were specifically targeted by Andrew Fakefield. He actually went there and specifically spoke to those people. To get them not to vaccinate. They have, there was an article, and I didn't save it. They have, I'll say evidence for lack of a better word, that he actually spoke there 3 years ago and talked to these people, talk them out of getting vaccinated. So Wakefield, in his stupidity, is actually targeting specific populations.
Like vulnerable populations who will listen, and we're bringing back diseases that should not be here. People should not be getting measles, yet it happens. And I mean, I know from working in a school in the state of Maryland, you know, everybody needs to put in their health forms, whatever, you know, when you send your kid to school, but we have the ability here as parents to sign have signed a religious exemption on the forms about immunizations. And well, I mean, first of all, there aren't, I mean, would Christian scientists fall into the category of not believing in vaccinations? I don't even know if they do.
They are technically the only ones. And any of the normal mainstream major denominations and subset of some of the sects, none of them have any doctrine on the books stating that vaccination is verboten. So even use it. But what happens within the courts when because it becomes a separation of church-state issues, a court will not dictate someone's theology. So that's why the religious exemption works. Just because your church doesn't preach it, but if you believe it, they're not going to discount your, quote, sincerely held religious belief. Gee, where have we heard that before?
And people exploit it with the vaccines because it can't be challenged. And so, because I know every year, without a doubt, there would be at least one family who they send in their forms and there's that piece signed on it that, their child, they're, religiously exempt. But we know they are not practicing anything. They're anti-vaxxers. I'm sorry, they're anti-vaxxers. And
but
nothing can be done about it.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people are calling the anti-vaccine a cult.
Yeah.
They are falling into, you look at Jim Humble and Carrie Rivera.
Ooh,
they are yeah, and that's my big shtick. I actually had to take a break from it because it was getting I was getting obsessed, more so than usual. But they specifically started a church in order to be able to tout MMS, which is sticking bleach up your child's ass to cure autism. And supposedly Rivera's now out of it, but she's jumped ship to GMAF. But he specifically started a church so he could use separation of church-state, because the courts generally do not dictate theology of individual believers. And that's why he calls MMS a sacrament of the church, because he's exploiting that loophole in our Constitution. And some of these cultists are going so far as to produce forged documentation to use these exemptions. Because they, instead of like in California, if you have a legitimate reason to not be vaccinated, you can get an exemption form from your doctor, besides Dr. Bob Sears. Some people are now forging those forms and actually distributing them online to get around the exemption. This is their thinking. They're breaking the law intentionally. So they're special little snowflakes, and it's not the child's fault. Don't get me wrong. The kids are too young to even understand. But they're actually some of them are actually indoctrinating to, like, if a doctor, it's scary.
It is, because it's
really
like
scary.
And then people will post in these, Facebook groups pictures of what happens when you give children these treatments. It's abusive to children, and it is just insane. And so that's where there are some of these places where these irrational beliefs, where the woo, where all of it just becomes so dangerous, when you're endangering the lives of children who are not going to object to what's going on. And it's really sad. It's really scary. And that's where I think it's just so important of calling it out and everything.
You like this. This is an article from last year, but it's an article from the CBC News. And it says that Ontarians, which is my province, seeking vaccination exemptions for their children This is a bill that was introduced last year. Sorry, I should have made that more. So they're trying to get this passed into law, so that Ontarians seeking vaccine exemptions for their children would be required to attend an education session, according to the legislation introduced by the provincial Liberal government. If passed, the legislation would require parents to complete an education session offered by their local public health unit before the children are exempted from getting vaccinated. So they're trying. I would prefer that they outlaw it, but I guess they're going to, that's something. At least they're going to say, well, you got to sit through this. And of course, somebody who's decided that it's all a big conspiracy. Oh, well, the government's forcing me to watch their propaganda and blah, blah, blah. But, it's something.
But it's still putting one step, like one thing between them and probably the bad decision they're going to make, but still, yeah. And
a lot of school boards in Ontario, if your children can't prove that they've been if you can't prove that they've had all their vaccinations or that they have a legal exemption, they don't go to school, period.
Yeah. I mean, as it should be, because there have to be rules in place, because these are rules that protect everybody else too. Because, an unvaccinated child, when there are, like we were saying before, people who cannot get vaccinated or people who are compromised in their immune system for whatever reason, we do need to think of the larger society and not just, these individual families' beliefs that, for whatever reason they're choosing not to vaccinate. But there are just some really dangerous medical type of things that are just out there in the world. I mean, I remember one mom who was kind of anti-vaxxer at the school when I had my first son, and he was, I would say, oh yeah, he's maybe a little colicky, he cries a bit. Her response was, have you taken him to a chiropractor?
Yeah.
So this is talking to me, the parent of a, few-month-old baby. And this woman was saying, oh yeah, I've been taking my children to the chiropractor since they were whatever. And, when you're the professional in your role, I mean, I couldn't just say, holy
are
shit,
you nuts?
Fucking not. But I was just like, I'm good.
I'm good. Thanks for the suggestion.
But this is the thing. Wow. People are cracking babies' backs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not okay, yet it's a thing that happens. There are videos of this posted on the internet.
Yeah.
Like it's okay, and like it's a thing that people do. And I remember feeling shocked when I encountered it in real life. But then, fast forward a couple years later, and I'm in, more of the online, science skeptic world, and I'm just seeing it all over. Like it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
It boggles my mind.
Go ahead, Beth.
What's bizarre about the whole chiropractic thing, and I grew up with it my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Until I moved out, I was like 17. My uncle, he was an MD. He had his MD license, but he was also an osteopath, and they practiced chiropractic medicine. And I swore by chiropractics till I was probably about 28, which was about the time I deconverted. But it's like now that I look into it, and the more that I understand it, and like I used to go get acupuncture. It was kind of relaxing, but it's just like now that I understand it more. I mean, I don't have a science background. My training is in theology and psychology, but it's like it's just really scary what. Like I'm in this discussion with 3 different people, and the whole gist of this discussion is they do not understand what science is.
Yeah.
Try making one guy, science is an idea.
Yeah.
No, not quite. It's like, or the favorite trope, science was wrong before.
Yeah.
Well,
Or, you know, science changes all the time, therefore
and
it's
that's
not
the other one.
reliable.
Exactly. It's like,
we learn more.
I know.
Like, as if that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I remember. Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say when I. That's what the delay does.
Go ahead, Deb.
When I ran into that guy from Falun Gong on Twitter, I don't know if you've ever heard of Falun Gong, Natalie. It makes it gives Scientology a run for its money as to craziness. And that's the religion that they persecute over in China. But this guy, I'm like, look, dude, I don't believe in this stuff, and it's woo-woo and whatever. And he's like, oh, science is wrong. They were wrong about the map of the tongue. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he's like, where they used to say that you taste bitter on one side and sweet on another side. He's like, they were wrong. Therefore, all of science is wrong. I'm like, what? It's like, okay, so it was wrong about where you taste shit on your tongue. And now I'm going to believe that there are 2,000-year-old people hiding in caves somewhere that can see through walls and read your mind. Okay.
Right. Because this one thing, then everything's wrong. And see, the thing that I feel like we, Dan and I say a lot on our show too is, right now, I think we have a very sort of for instance, biotechnology message, because the consensus is that GMOs are safe. If tomorrow somebody, like, the evidence swayed in the complete opposite direction and said everything you thought you knew, whatever, is wrong because the consensus is the opposite, then our minds would be changed.
Yeah,
that's what science is.
That's exactly it. And when they say, well, my beliefs don't ever change, or this holy text never changes, and that's why it's real. Like, no, that's bad. You need it to update
because it's not religion. It's not religion.
Yeah,
we're not just following the same book.
And does that not drive you nuts when some theist is like, science is your religion? I'm like, you don't understand what it is.
You brought up an interesting point, maybe a question you may be able to answer. It's one that I've posted about various times. But one of the biggest issues that I've run across is reading scientific studies and not reading just the headlines of articles that popularize. How would you tell people to read a scientific study?
Good one.
How would I? Well, that's a really good one. And because honestly, for me, because I'm more of my background is psychology and education. And then, so for me, if I'm reading about findings in the world of science, I'm not necessarily going, and thinking like, if this sort of clickbaity title on, a BuzzFeed article is science, it's trying to find the right sources. Like, am I gonna, take something from an article from Nature a lot more seriously than, so it's, I guess it's knowing sources, but for me, it's also being fortunate, I think, enough to have people to ask, to know people who actually are scientists and science communicators, which is why when I was making a movie about GMOs and vaccines and all that, I interviewed geneticists, biologists, science journalists, people who can communicate these ideas better. So for the layman person who is not necessarily like me too, like I'm not just going in reading a lot of journal articles. It's trying to find the right sources to explain to me and to people what what these findings mean or what good evidence is. And
I had a background in psychology and stuff too. And for me, when I'm presented, somebody says, well, here's a study and you're wrong. The first thing I do is look for what was the methodology, how did they do their sampling, you know, is that looking legit? Did they ask 6 people or did they ask 6,000 people? Did they, you know, tell them what the study was all about, or was it a double-blind study that they didn't have any idea of what was going on, and things like that? That gives it more credibility if they're using proper techniques to conduct a study. And I believe that was one of the problems with what's his face,
Wakefield.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and in the
there were a lot of troubles.
Yeah, that was, you know, discredited. And there's when you talk about GMOs, there's the Seralini study that has been debunked, and so there are certain ones, but it's fascinating that these are the studies that people will still bring up in the comment section, where, you know, they're talking GMOs and then they just drop Seralini in there with a picture of the rat with the tumor and all of that stuff. But and so there are specific ones in some of these common arguments that we have learned over time. That you know, Google search that somebody did has not pulled up something that is going to sway the tide, you know, towards them being correct.
Well, one point you brought up is knowing people, you know, you can go to for source that you trust. We've already talked about SciBase.
Yep.
And
Credible Hulk.
Yeah, I know you've had the honor of interviewing one of my favorite science communicators writers, and he's actually a doctor of oncology, surgical oncology, and you know who we're talking about is David Gorski, who writes at Science-Based Medicine. And the only reason I bring it up is because not just Gorski, but the whole of Science-Based Medicine, Steve Novella is also involved in it. They have a gamut of various medical personnel, whether they're doctors or I know Mark Rivera was writing there for a while. I don't know if he still does or not. He's a pharmacist out of Canada. But they have Gorski, who's an oncologist. Novella works in
neuroscience, right?
Thank you.
Yes, that's what he does.
And their articles are very, very well researched and resourced. And you know, if he I'll use Dave as an example. If he brings something up, he's going to link you to something that's going to help explain it. And it's like those are the type of people. I mean, Credible Hulk's awesome. Natalie's Facebook page is pretty good too. And I'm not saying that because she's on the show. Part of the reason she's on the show because she has that Facebook. But SciBase, it's just there's so many different levels. Like I know one of our other podcasters just interviewed the Farm Babe, and I like the fact that she's on the, we'll say, the layman's level. But then you have the other extreme, Kevin Folta.
We've talked to Kevin. He's amazing.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind talking to him, but I'd probably just sit there and I do that. I get these fangirl crushes. Even
Science crushes.
Yeah, and it's bizarre because everything I've done up until, well, I had my interest in MMS, and that's been around for years. But I picked at it, especially through creationism. But it wasn't until I got sick 2 years ago that it's kind of, I had to take a step back from, I do mostly social issues, LGBT issues, and First Amendment stuff, and it was just getting too overwhelming because I had post-stroke depression. So I was like, oh, I'll do science stuff. That'll be more fun. Yeah, the loons in the science realm just kind of like,
that's scary stuff.
It's like it was all instead of religion. Take that word out, insert science. And I thought we had it bad here in the U.S. I have a lot of friends that are in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And the anti-vax loons in Australia are fucking nuts. Okay, I have well, she doesn't now, but I have a woman that I wrote some...
Uh-oh.
No.
No.
It's been so good.
It's about...
Oh, no.
Utter fucking fraud.
Everyone else in Emporium, turn your internet off now. Just fucking, we got 25 minutes. Fucking turn your internet off. Everyone in Emporium but Beth. We're only getting every like half syllable.
Yeah.
You're a frozen robot. You're a frozen robot.
You go ahead and take over.
Oh shit. So you mentioned, Natalie, that you're working on a movie. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? That sounds fun.
So I have a 30-minute documentary called Science Moms that is nearing completion and will start to be shown in various places in October. Like it's going to be in the UK at the QED conference there.
Nice, yes.
Which is awesome. It's going to be at SciCon in Las Vegas. And I'm going to go to that and do a Q&A after the movie is shown with Coven Snapathy, one of the women that's in the film. So it's nearing completion. The film is, it's kind of the anti-vaxxed in a sense, in that rather than trying to sell fear to people, you're trying
to demonstrate reason.
Yeah. And to tell parents, like, you don't have to worry about some of this stuff, food and medicine, and the fact that we are fortunate enough to live in an age where we have, sustainable food supply. We have all of this at our disposal. We have modern medicine to help us. Like, it's a movie just to demystify some of these things out there in the parenting narrative that just seems like it's based on fear. So we try to, simply explain what GMO means, some of the, debunk some of the stuff around organic food being necessarily better for you. And, some of the misconceptions people have. We give a definition of what homeopathy is because holy shit, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We, just talk about, the importance of vaccination and in a way where I interviewed five women who are just like people, you just kind of meet in your everyday life, who happen to have backgrounds in science and skepticism, and they're approachable, relatable people that I think are delivering these messages in a way that hopefully will resonate with parents, or even people who aren't parents but just want a little more information on some of these issues. So it's hopefully my little part to try to get some of these conversations started and the critical thinking to, move beyond just the, science and skeptical community, but into the larger, parenting community. And so it's been a real pleasure to work on it, just, to watch it grow, but also it's just been really cool kind of coming into this world of science communication. And it was what brought me to the podcasting and, skeptical and secular activism. And it's just been really, really neat. Yeah. Awesome. So I'm kind of just excited that it's nearly ready to be out.
That's
in the
awesome.
world. Like my little is ready to go.
I can't wait for it.
So we were talking, earlier about how even in the atheist community, which would be a lot of the places where your film is going to get shown, there's still people that have, shall we say, challenges with skepticism. And so when people come out, because I was trolling your Facebook page earlier, and I saw the one meme you have of Netflix and shill. So and even I've been called, shill for this and that. And it's like, so how do you combat that? Like you put all your heart and soul into a project like this, where you're trying to demonstrate this is reality, this is what rationality is, and we are just a shill for big this or big that.
It's, I think at this point for me, I have to laugh it off, because the reality is that pretty much any of us that are called shills, and chances are if you have a science-based, honestly just a science-based viewpoint out there on the internet, you're going to be called a shill, because for some of these conspiracy-minded people, it's like they can't understand that somebody wouldn't be paid to have this type of worldview, which is bizarre. But yeah, I get very strange like shill accusations, and that there's an idea that Science Moms the movie is the creation of, I don't know, some like PR company. I mean,
Monsanto did it.
Yeah, except if Monsanto was doing this, first of all, if Monsanto wanted to give me a whole briefcase of money to make a movie, I wouldn't have had to raise it on Kickstarter, and I would have disclosed this. And this is what I've told people when they, have kind of come at me on Twitter, especially about this, is because I wouldn't have I wouldn't hide if there was a company that gave me money to make a movie. I'd be like, okay, that's out there, because I'm an honest person and I believe in what the message is, and I have no reason to think otherwise, because evidence and all that stuff.
If some huge anti-vax group came to you and said, we're going to give you like $3 million to make the best anti-vax movie out there, you'd be like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So right, and so there's that reality. It would just be fuck you to whomever wanted to provide money for something bullshitty. But yeah, it definitely is something that comes up, and it just came up. I was definitely sort of Facebook arguing with a really angry lady the other day on a Science Moms post who had like, she thought she was checkmating me at one point, because she went to my personal profile and found out I was a psychology major, and she used that as an insult. She was like, with your psychology degree. And I mean, my response was just pretty much, have a nice day.
This is something that drives me batty, is the idea that if you can somehow disparage the person in some way, it automatically makes everything that they say wrong. And I'm like, no, even the most evil person on the planet can come up with something that's right.
Yeah, it's not how it works. And then the woman ended up just deleting the whole comment thread, because some of my friends came in, friends who are actual scientists, and were posting scientific links and studies. So she got really mad and started telling them to just suck it. And so I told her that it really wasn't polite to tell people to suck it. So
and she doesn't have one anyway, I'm assuming. But anyway,
so yeah, this is what happens on the internet. People show the worst versions of themselves. Like I mean, I hope that my children never behave in real life the way adults behave in the comment sections on the internet, because it's gross. But yeah, the shill accusation is hilarious, because the movie, if I had all this money, the movie would already be done. I would probably be traveling around showing it in all places already. Like the narrative just doesn't add up. But I love that there's a story that this was created by some PR company.
So Beth, go ahead, Beth. You're trying to say something.
I was going to say, what's really funny about the shill accusation as a whole is you look at somebody like you, okay, doing this movie. But yeah, they trust the food babe who has her affiliate links, makes money. You have these natural news who tells you don't buy mainstream shit, buy my shit so I can make some money. You have Mercola, who does the exact same thing. They all have their own stores. David Wolf.
Yep. And look at fucking Paltrow. Gwyneth Paltrow has made a whole brand for herself and is, you know, cashing in on her fame, and that's okay.
But yet, they all have some type of supplementation, or an offshoot of the shill accusation is they focus on credentials. You're listening to somebody like the food babe who has no training whatsoever in any related field related to food over somebody like Kevin Folta, who is, you know, a scientist that works in this field. It just blows my mind. It's like one of the conversations I had this weekend. This guy readily admits he has no higher education or no degree, and he's like, I can tell by your writing that you don't, you know, could write a 40-page thesis, no problem. I'm like, I'm a 3-time college dropout. No, I can't. I don't have any credentials either. I just choose to educate myself.
And I was Bullionator over in the chat said he was called a shill by someone he's known for 23 years over flat earth shit.
Oh, good God.
A shill for what? Like round globe? Oh my god.
Yes.
So, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, we have
this is the thing that gets me too, is a lot of these conspiracy people, I'll ask them, okay, let's just say I for the sake of argument, if I buy what you're trying to sell me here, what's the end game? What's the point? Why? And they never can answer this.
Well, yeah, I mean, the people that are selling the bullshit, the food babes and the Mercolas and all of those of the world, they want to make their money. And what's sad to me is that, like, what's the end for the people that actually buy it and waste their own money on that and think it's a cure and believe it, and they're victims in a way of these charlatans, you know, selling the bullshit, and that sucks. And that's why I think the message of critical thinking just in general across all, you know, subject areas pretty much needs to be there, because if people start thinking critically, you know, about one belief that they hold dear, maybe they start thinking critically about other things. Like if people start thinking critically about, I don't know, about food issues or medicine issues, maybe they eventually start thinking critically about religion or whatever it is. But but that maybe it's something that, you know, happens gradually over time. But man, like I don't know what the end goal for some of this is, because
it doesn't make sense either. It doesn't make sense, you know, when they're telling you whatever thing they're saying is a conspiracy and the government's in on it. And like, for instance, when we get people saying, you know, a tragic event is a false flag. Okay, do you have any idea how many thousands of people would have to be involved and never like let out that it was fake and just and then they say, oh, but see, we can see this person and this person was at all these different events and they're a crisis actor. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? If someone's trying to hide this, do you really think they would publicize that they're a crisis actor on the fucking internet? Like, give me a break.
I have two things I say to people like that. One, somebody could not hide the fact that he had a blowjob in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
Okay. The second fact is, if the Illuminati / NWO exists, they can't take down a simple YouTube video.
That's true too. Yeah.
I mean, But
Yeah.
the end game is always money and power.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if Soros is so fucking rich, he can fund the entire Democratic and lesbian gay agenda, what the fuck is more money going to do for him?
That's a good point. Because that's a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
That's more money than Agent Orange has.
Yeah. And the thing is, if it's power, well, if he's funding the entire LGBTQI agenda and the Democratic Party, why does he need any more power than that?
Well, see, these are questions that they can't really answer.
No, they can't. I usually get deleted.
No.
Usually, the threads go by. I don't know how many conversations Deb and I have been on, and we don't I screenshot everything now, and we're like, shit, I should have screenshot that. The bastard deleted it, and we'd be like making really good points.
Yeah.
So now I screenshot everything now. It's a good thing I have 3 hard drives, thanks to Deb.
Or the other one is they just block you and, you're closed-minded, and they block you and run away. It's like, I'm closed-minded because I'm giving you a reasoned argument as to why I don't believe what you're telling me. Okay.
And speaking of closed-minded, oh ye who just blocked me.
Oh,
well, right. Yeah. And I think, be open-minded, but be open-minded within a reasonable level of, because you can't just be open and accepting of any crazy theory that comes your way.
It's like, I've been in an airplane, okay? I can see with my own eyeballs that the earth is not fucking flat. And when somebody comes to me and says, well, everything you've ever seen in regards to the earth and cosmology is a lie, and if you don't automatically agree with me, you're closed-minded, give me a fucking break. That's like a
You've been in an airplane that pumps in oxygen from the outside air because they put nitrogen in the air?
Oh, right. Okay. So I was hallucinating the whole time. Yes. But they could control that I was hallucinating specifically a curvature of the earth and nothing else. Like, because I wasn't thinking
very specific.
I wasn't thinking, my flight attendants were reptilians or anything. It was specifically the earth was round is what I was meant to hallucinate. Jesus fuck.
There are so many levels of bullshit. And the fact that it's a conversation that exists that people really think that the earth is flat.
It is ridiculous.
It's sad too on some level that people believe it.
I just recently joined, it's a community called the Great Debate Community. It's more so on YouTube. They have a Google Plus presence for text debating and whatnot. And we do a lot of hangouts. And one of the ones that one of the main organizers likes to do, he calls it rum and coke night, but we all get in a hangout and we go and troll flat earth streams. And the people that are out there, and I mean, we had this guy that actually we invited into our hangout, and he seemed like a very friendly, affable guy, but he was damned convinced that he got out the clear bowl and put it on the table with the flashlight and was like, see, this is how the sun goes over the dome, and just like, we're stunned because he seemed like a decent guy, but he was absolutely, and he was, I was all into NASA when I was a boy, and I believed all that stuff, and it's only the last 2 years that I know it's a lie. And how do you get to that place? I just
yeah, I don't know. Like, do you wake up one day and say, I really need to examine
what I think is
what I think about the earth? Well, and that it's just out there in the conversation that, you know, it's a thing. Some people believe the earth is flat. When I was flying to Manchester in the fall to go to last year's QED, I was on the plane. Somebody asked me, you know, where are you going? I said, oh, I'm going to Manchester. I'm going to go to a skeptics conference. And the guy, he was like, oh, skeptic, like flat earth and that kind of thing. I was like,
wrong end of the skeptics.
That's not what, no. No.
Well, it's like the other day, I don't remember what I was working on, one of my Woo projects, and basically I posted on Facebook. I said, well, it's not breaking news. I've come to the conclusion that our education system has failed or is failing in regards to teaching what science is. I've had, you know, about 3 conversations this weekend, and none of my discussion partners have a fucking clue. And that's what it comes down to. And this ties into the whole, and Deb's heard this spiel, you know, with the religious right wanting to dumb down our students. You know, whether they primarily in high school because they're more reachable than they are in college. And you know, we're seeing shit like flat earth being accepted. I mean, this is what not teaching critical thinking in schools or teaching proper science because they're afraid to teach evolution because, you know, some religious nut job is going to fucking sue them. Like, I mean, in Florida now they have a law where any parent can challenge what's being taught in the classroom.
What?
What's being taught in the classroom, they can challenge it. And you know, primarily that's going to be in your science and your health classes because they, you know, abstinence only.
Oh, yeah, because that worked for Mary. That's always my favorite. Like, you can't get pregnant if you don't have sex. Really? Because that didn't work so well for Mary. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, okay, you bring up another good recent article. The, what's her name? Activist mommy had a fucking fit. Had a fucking royal fit because Teen Vogue published an article about fucking butt sex.
Yep. Yep. She lost her mind. She lost her mind.
Newsflash, people. First of all, gay men are not the only ones that practice butt sex. Okay?
Yeah.
I know quite a few lesbians that do butt sex too, obviously using a dildo. Okay? But it is also practiced by straight heterosexual people as well. Not only that, it is the primary form of sex activity that kids use to avoid intercourse.
I will tell you right now, as a horny 16-year-old, way over the top Bible thumping Christian, who could not get birth control when I was 16 because we lived in a little town, and if I went to get birth control, everybody and their uncle would know. What was the first thing that I talked to my boyfriend about was, well, maybe we can try, you know, anal because I won't get pregnant that way. First thing, and that was at the height of my Bible thumping.
It is the primary sexual activity besides oral that is used by Christian teenagers to stay within the bounds of abstinence only.
Yep. Exactly.
Oral sex and anal sex are 1-2. They are very close.
Yep. So if you think your purity ring wearing daughter hasn't thought about it, you're a dumbass.
She has.
Not even just thought about it if she hasn't already done it.
Yep.
Okay. Thought once they hit 14, 15, I had not somebody I work with, but friends of, 15 years old. 15 years old. Okay, talking about shit that made me blush.
Yeah.
Okay, Now, I might be a little bit Victorian in my views about talking about it on the show. I will say this. I'm not so much in my personal life.
There you go.
When a 15-year-old has me blushing, we got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. But I was just going to say we're almost at the end here, but if you want to take a bit more time and make a point, by all means, you're.
Oh no, I was just going to say that Dan and I talked about activist mommy on our podcast and the way that these people just lose their shit.
Yeah.
Really should be thinking about how can we have conversations with teenagers like Teen Vogue was trying to do, to help them make the best choices possible for themselves, for each other. I mean, this stuff is going to happen. It's part of life. It's always been happening. So I want to be able to have those conversations out there. And I respect that magazine for putting it out there.
Absolutely.
Like, good
and
on
one
that.
of the primary reasons they put it out there, besides the fact, it's happening, it's because it's happening. They want to try to prevent the so-called injuries, and you can get hurt from butt sex. Shit goes wrong
if you don't do it properly, some people just aren't built to do that.
Yeah. And that's what they wanted to address. She's so worried that their kids are going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt worse.
Yes.
By not having the proper information.
And I'm going to tell you, as a former somewhat rebellious teenager, even as a religious one, the minute you tell a teenager don't do it with no explanation whatsoever, they're damn well going to do it the first opportunity they get, because you didn't explain why it's bad. And even if you do, sometimes they want to do it anyway. But if you're just going to say, because I said so, or because God said so, you may as well told them, go ahead and do it. Just don't tell me, because that's what they're going to do.
Well, too many people, and this is still going on. My sex education when I was in my teens was, here's a book, read it.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it's like
I did get the class on how to use a tampon, though. But
I think we all got that, the health class, right?
Yes.
I didn't get that at home. I did. I mean, thankfully, my sex education in school was, I don't know if adequate's the right word, but it was proper. Especially for that time. You're talking the 70s and very early 80s. So it's like, if it wasn't for what I was taught in school, I'd be up shit's creek.
Yep.
Who knows? I might even be straight.
I don't know. I don't think it quite works that way, but oh goodness. Well, we pretty much come to a way to end the show on butt sex, but hey, that's all right.
Why not?
Why not?
We've ended some way, so why not butt sex?
Butt sex. Woo. But thank you so much for joining us, Natalie. It was very enjoyable, and glad you could make it. And please tell us where everybody can find your podcast and all your projects.
So on Facebook, I guess, is the best place to go and search for Science Moms. I have a page called Skeptical Parenting, and we have a page for the Science Enthusiast Podcast. And if you're not following my co-host Dan at A Science Enthusiast, do that. He has a fantastic Facebook page. And I think that's it. But thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I think Beth gave me all the links to all that stuff. So it could be it should be already in the show description. So go click away and you can find all of Natalie's cool stuff. And there's a couple of encouragements from the chat. I know one person I didn't get to earlier, but oh, come on, where are they? Heart on My Sleeves had said that they heard your interview with Noel last night, said great work, and hope your show is a great success. So that was from someone in the chat there. And Booleanator said, keep up the good work. So there you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's great. Beth, where do we find you?
Well, first I want to thank you, Natalie, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
You know, as I said when I was talking to you, I think it's just important. People need to learn about science and learn about the bullshit. And I think you, as well as all the other side communicators, are doing a phenomenal job, and I thank you. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But easiest way to find me is Dune9998 on Twitter. That connects to Facebook as well as to my blog, Havoc and Chaos. And I have like 3 posts I'm working on. Should be interesting. And on Facebook, it's Beth A. Hambridge, if you want to look me up there. And I am also on Google+, although I'm not real good on that, so you'll have to bear with me. And I'm not very good on Twitter either. 144 characters doesn't work when you're in a debate, especially me.
Yeah, I kind of honed my game a little bit, but then I ended up going on multiple, 5-part tweets, and I was like, you know what, it's not.
I give up as far as that part goes, because I'm sorry, I'm verbose. I know I'm verbose.
It's all right. And you can also find me on Sunday mornings at 12:05 a.m. on Holy Crap, the Vlogcast, where we talk about all kinds of things that are secular, hosted by Shuge and Tribble, and our motley cast of whoever happens to get out of bed at that hour, because some of them are in Europe and it's 5 o'clock in the morning over there. But yeah, we can be found at holycrapthevlogcast.com. And I don't know what we're talking about this weekend, but it'll be fun, I'm sure. And of course, here, and I've been popping up on the Great Debate Community platforms. We have a Google Plus Great Debate Community, and we have a community channel on YouTube and Steve McRae's channel. There is a link to the Great Debate Community in the description if you want to go check out what kind of stuff. And it's definitely debating. We've got theists of various stripes over there. There are some flat earthers and some other entertaining folks, shall we say. So yeah, you can find me over there sometimes as well. And all of my links are always flying by my head up there. And of course, we have beyondthetrailerpark.com. We also like to mention, of course, the Whitefields Educational Foundation out of Utah, who have the Taylor Scholarship, and they provide counseling for people who are leaving or have left religion and feel like they want to talk to somebody about it. The Taylor Scholarship provides funding for people who want to talk to somebody but can't afford to do so. And that was started by David Michael of my Book of Mormon podcast. So the URL is whitefieldseducational.org/my Book of Mormon podcast. They are a great group. And if you have want to support a charity, we recommend those folks. And also, we do have a Patreon. It's not a big one, but we use it to fund our Spreaker hosting. So if you feel like throwing us $1 or $2, that would be awesome too. We would greatly appreciate it. And since my outro isn't working, I'm going to end off with something I actually just did last night that wasn't even thinking about the podcast when I did it. It was out of frustration with somebody who is supposed to be a skeptic who is trying to convince me about woo-woo. So I created a list of things that I do not believe in. So I am going to read this. No music, but that's okay. I'm going to read this and then we'll peace out. So I don't believe in gods, devils, demons, succubi, incubi, ghosts, angels, saints, spirits, pixies, fairies, leprechauns, unicorns, elves, goblins, giants, Nephilim, Thetans, Xenu, witches, wizards, sorcerers, magic, telepathy, telekinesis, medium, psychics, auras, Reiki, faith healing, naturopaths, chiropractic, cleanses, homeopathy, spells, curses, miracles, mystic visions, spirit guides, astrology, dowsing, tarot, Ouija boards, prophecies, palmistry, psychic surgery, scrying, enlightenment, reincarnation, the Illuminati, Masonic plots, skull and bones plots, Jewish plots, chemtrails, FEMA camps, false flags, vaccines causing autism, reptilians, ancient aliens, GMOs causing cancer, flat earth, fake moon landing, 9/11 conspiracy, Santa, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, Krampus, Nessie, Ogopogo, Bigfoot, Yeti, Chupacabra, Mothman, gray aliens, werewolves, vampires, and zombies, and any other theistic, deistic, demonic, magical, mythical, miraculous, supernatural, conspiratory, or woo-woo shit you can think of but isn't mentioned specifically. There you go. So we'll be back next week, and we will be talking with Greta Vosper, who is the openly atheist pastor of a United Church congregation just down the highway from me. And I'm really excited about it. She's got a couple of books out, and we'll be talking with her next week. So 7:30 Eastern on YouTube, hopefully Spreaker, and we will see you then. Have a good one.